And all right, everyone, thanks for being here. I'm Dawn Lothringer. I'm the Scholar Support Coordinator here at Compass. And today we're going to go through our Section 504s and our SST process, but we're going to start with our 504s. Let's see. Oh, on keyboard. Oops. So we are going to go through our mission and vision, our values, a quick look at IEPs versus 504s. We'll review what a 504 plan is, how a scholar qualifies for a 504. Is a 504 an automatic alternative for a scholar that did not qualify for an IEP? Where to find the accommodations, why the end of the month check-ins are important, and what our roles are in the 504 process. And my keyboard is not working. All right, so our 504 plans align perfectly with our mission and vision here at Compass. The goal of the 504 plan is to develop individualized support and accommodations for a scholar with disabilities so they can access the school the same as their peers. Our ARTIC values also align with the 504 process as we use communication, teamwork, respect, and integrity to increase our scholars' achievements. Now we're going to take a quick look at how IEPs and 504 plans are different. I'm just going to touch on a few of these differences, but slides are available if you want to read a little bit more about it. The first major difference between IEPs and 504s are that IEPs are special education and 504s are not. They're general education. IEPs are protected by IDEA and receive funding from the federal and state governments. 504 plans are protected by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and they do not receive funding from the federal or state governments. However, if you do not abide by Section 504, they have no problem taking money from the school as penalties. There are guidelines to qualify for both plans, but the guidelines are not the same, and we'll go into that a little bit later. What is a Section 504 plan? Again, a Section 504 plan is not special education. It does not provide special education services, but it does remove barriers within the school for a scholar with a disability. These barriers to their learning will differ depending on the scholar and their disability, but the goal of the 504 plan is to provide an equitable learning environment. How does a scholar qualify? To qualify for a 504 plan, a scholar must have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more areas of major life activity, and these limitations are impacting their ability to access school. We look at how it's impacting their academics, social behavior, as well as their participation, work completion, and attendance. What is Child Find? Child Find requires LEAs to locate and identify scholars with disabilities. It is our responsibility to ensure that scholars with disabilities are found within our school. These disabilities can include thinking differences, developmental delays, as well as other conditions. A scholar with a disability or suspected disability can be referred to the 504 team by anyone. If the 504 team feels the scholar would be evaluated or should be evaluated by special education, the referral will be made. And we are obligated to determine the most appropriate supports, which may not be special education or a 504 plan. The most appropriate supports may just be some extra supports within the general education environment. My scholar did not qualify for SPED, so now what? This comes up a lot. A 504 plan is not the alternative to an IEP. Not everyone who didn't get an IEP needs a 504 plan. The IEP team will determine if a referral for a 504 plan is appropriate for a scholar, or if they would maybe benefit from an SST referral. If a scholar doesn't need a referral to an SST or a 504, it should be completed within 2 business days after the IEP determination meeting. How do I know if a scholar has a 504 plan? It's pretty easy in our SIS. There will be a turquoise asterisk next to their or underneath their names in their dashboards. If they have a partial turquoise asterisk, then it's a possible 504. They're either a new enrollment and we're waiting to find out if they have an actual 504 plan or not. And initial requests will also have a partial asterisk, just so that they are on everyone's radar that we are going through that process. If the 504 is active and in place, the asterisk will be a solid turquoise. Where do you find the accommodations? There's actually 3 places that you can find the accommodations. The first is your email. If you are on the 504 team for a scholar, you will get an email from me at the beginning of every semester with the scholar's 504 plan attached. The second place to look are their 504 headquarters on the program page, which is why I have the program page right here for their check-ins. Column A is all blue, and it's because they are the 504 plans that are hyperlinked right there. Only the 504 team working with that scholar can access the 504 plan. They're not open for everyone. So they are protected, but that's another place that you can go and find the 504 plan. The third place is within the SIS. The teachers can look at their student rosters, and in the special needs column, if they have the turquoise asterisk, they can click on that little arrow and it'll drop down and it'll actually show the accommodations right there. But they aren't very neat. They're kind of messy. This just kind of lumps them all together, but they're there. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out and ask me. End of the month check-ins. First, I'll apologize for all the nagging that I do every end of the month. But it is really important that we have consistent collaboration between those who are working directly with the scholar and myself. The scholar's needs and situations can change so quickly. And by having these monthly check-ins, we can stay on top of the scholar's needs and ensure that the 504 plan is correctly supporting the scholar. There is a rubric in the 504 headquarters for the teachers to reference if they aren't sure which one to pick at the end of the month. And of course, if they're just really unsure, they can always reach out to me and we can talk about it. They can actually mark that in the rubric if they need to talk to me about something or if they want to talk to the whole team. All right, what is my role in the 504 process? Before a 504 meeting for our administrators and program coordinators, supporting your ST, ensuring that all pre-meeting forms and documents are ready before the meeting. You know, if they are going to have a new situation that they want to discuss, maybe having some work samples that support whatever that they want to talk about, make sure they fill out that teacher feedback form. Those are really, really important so that I can brainstorm ahead of time and ask questions if needed before the meeting. During collaborations, and if you're invited to sit in with your ST for an LC collaboration, just keep an ear out for anything that might involve a medical or mental disability. Ask some questions and determine if that child should be referred per child find. Collaborate with me anytime you have any questions or concerns. I'm happy to meet. We can meet one-on-one. We can meet as a team. We can meet before the meeting. Just make sure we're all on the same page and we're supporting our scholar the best we can. During a meeting, admin needs to be an active participant. Facilitate collaboration and ensure professionalism during the 504 meeting. Ensure that everyone's cameras are on unless there's some, technical difficulties, which we've all had internet issues where if we put our camera on, we're going to get kicked out of the meeting. Make sure that everyone is able to access their mic and that professionalism is number one at all times. Brainstorming appropriate accommodations. Accommodations should be appropriate for the disability. We get some pretty wild requests sometimes, and we just need to make sure that we're offering reasonable alternatives to those interesting requests. And then after the meeting, just make sure that you're supporting your ST with any questions they might have, putting support and accommodations in place. Remind the ST to complete that end of the month check-in, or I'm gonna nag you, and then collaborate with me as needed. The role for the supervising teacher, before the meeting or referral, ensure that all pre-meeting forms and documents are collected, ready prior to the meeting. During the collaborations, also be listening for those medical or mental disabilities that we might need to discuss further. Complete the 504 referrals when needed. Complete the teacher input form that I send out at least 48 hours before the meeting would be great. Collaborate with their coordinator and with me if they have any questions. Again, always happy to have a meeting and discuss anything that might need to be discussed that's concerning. During a meeting, be an active participant, come to the meeting prepared, have their current diagnostic scores, grades, work samples if needed. I usually have most of those already because I can grab them from the SIS, but there's some things I don't have access to, and if, or they will know if there's something that needs to be brought up. Brainstorm appropriate accommodations and be ready to offer reasonable alternatives again. And after the meeting, they need to meet with their LC, make sure those accommodations are in place, complete the end of the month check-ins, and collaborate with me as needed. Role for the counselors and specialists. During the collaborations, again, that might involve a mental or physical disability, our counselors are great at this. They'll often email me or send me a G-chat and say, hey, I heard this. What do you think? And I'll let them know if we should put in a referral or not. I'm always open for collaboration. And if you cannot be in attendance, please complete the counseling specialist input form. I'm going to update that and send it out again, and it'll be linked to the guide site, which I haven't had time to update yet. But your attendance is always preferred because your input is valuable. You were chosen to be in that meeting for a reason. During the meeting, again, being an active participant, sharing your expertise in specific areas of concern, brainstorming appropriate accommodations, and then after the meeting, following up to complete any tasks that were designated to you during a meeting, and collaborating with the 504 team as needed. Oops. All right, what's new for 23-24? Beyond SST was determined not to be a good fit for our school. It wasn't a great fit for our SST process, and the STs really did not like the 504 plans. They were too cumbersome. The 504 meetings will continue to be held using the guiding slide deck. 504 meeting summaries will be completed on our updated 504 meeting template. Signatures will go out through Adobe Sign. They won't go through Beyond SST because we don't have it and everyone hated it anyway. And I did update the rubric this summer to better align to Compass and our independent study program versus a brick and mortar, which could be kind of confusing to some of our LCs. Any questions? There's my email. We have our academic support ticket still open, and my GChat and email are always open as well. So That is pretty much it for 504s. Should we do questions for 504s, or should we stop and move into the SSTs?
I think we're looking good for time. So if we want to take a few minutes for questions, remember to Casey linked that FAQ doc into the chat. Thanks for doing that, Casey. So if any questions come up even following, please feel free to ask questions and just tag Dawn in those and we can respond asynchronously. But yeah, we have a few minutes. So if anyone wants to ask some questions now, if not, we'll get moving into SST. Maybe a few minutes. Jen has a question.
Hi, sorry, my mic is not on because I'm just, it's Tuesday. I'm looking like a hot mess this morning, getting things going. But I think my question, Dawn, and I think you know this, is we had a specific case last year where a scholar did not qualify for SPED. And so we moved him over and questioned this idea of a possible 504. And the parent was not happy about that. Wanted all the things, not 504. How do we communicate with our families in that situation that a 504 is maybe the best option? Like, how do we take the bad taste of a 504 out of their mouth when they want an IEP? Because an IEP does all the things, right? At least they think that IEP is going to help do all the things when a 504 could really support the scholar. So that's the only thing that came up when you were talking about 504s was like, okay, but how do we move forward with a family who doesn't qualify for SPED? They really just don't. And the parents not accepting that answer. Like, I don't know, maybe that's like a question for another day, but.
No, it happens. That's not the only experience we've had. And really all we can do is stay professional in the meeting and keep ensuring the parents that we are putting these supports in place. We aren't going to make everyone happy. That parent really wants an IEP. I'm not even sure she knows exactly what it is that she's asking for, but she wants something more than we can give her at this time, and that's unfortunate, but the 504 is what we can offer, and so we just need to keep reiterating that we are supporting the scholar with the 504 plan, and these are all of the amazing things that we can do for that particular scholar at this time.
Thank you, Dawn. I think that scholar is back, and I was just thinking about that as we get started with the new school year and kind of where I don't really remember where we ended last year. I just know that, mom she wasn't super open to the 504, and it's like, we can offer all these things though. And it's like, she almost wanted that title that, well, I have an IEP, so I can do whatever I want. I don't know. And so I'm just kind of looking into what we're going to deal with maybe. But yeah. Thank you. That answered that. I appreciate that.
The other thing too that might help, Jen, I don't think SPED coordinators are on. I don't know if Amy's here. But on Friday, there's a session that Amy's team is leading on that admin support piece. And I wonder if save that question too, because I wonder if there's some insight that Amy's team can kind of lend when those situations come up as well. But that's a really good question.
Yeah, and I am working with the SPED coordinators on that situation because it is ongoing, and unfortunately, we just can't make everyone happy. Heather?
Hi, I was just wondering, could you explain a little bit more about the child find? Is that a separate, do we house kids in? Can you explain that a little bit more, what that is?
It's just a responsibility for the school to ensure that if we know a scholar has a disability, not all scholars with disabilities need a 504 or an IEP, but we have to at least determine that they don't need it. So we have to offer it. The parent always has the right to decline, They don't have to. That's why we have a parent permission form that goes out before we even start the process. And the parent, it says right on there that the parent can decline it, and that's their right.
So just for clarification, is it like recorded somewhere? If like, I have an example. I had a student that was, in fact, she ended up getting a 504, but had no hearing in one ear. And for a long time, the mom was like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything. I never recorded it anywhere. But when she was ready to move on to high school, the mom was like, yeah, I guess I should, get something documented so that teachers will know like to place her in certain places. So, so is it something like I should have recorded it? I guess I'm just clarifying, like, what's our responsibility in that?
We should at least send out an offer to do it. Maybe we should create some sort of document that the parent, we've offered this to the parent. Actually, the parent permission form is not really. So we can send the parent permission form out to them because they have a disability. They've disclosed that there is some sort of impairment, and then they can sign that saying that they aren't ready for that at this time.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate the clarification.
Dawn, is that something that we would put in like contact manager, like we would want on within their school record? Or is it something we keep just separate here if we've offered for like child find? I don't know. Does it usually go on the school record?
It would go in their CUME file.
Okay.
But we need to work definitely on places to put certain documentation. Within the SIS, we need to come up with some sort of system where all of that lives.
Yeah, because the contact manager, it's my understanding, is part of that student record, that student file. So maybe that would be somewhere to note it too, just a contact manager.
Does contact manager go in their CUME file though? Because I thought some of that was kept within the school, like parents wouldn't have access to, and parents can request a CUME file.
I'll follow up. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Erin. Because I thought that's why we want to be particular when we put stuff in contact manager. I thought it did go into their file. So we'll follow up.
Sure. We need more info on the SIS for sure. Anyone else? Or should we move on to SSTs? Is there anything in the chat maybe? Because I don't have the chat open. All right, let's go ahead and move to SSTs then. Stop sharing for a second and pull that up. All right, can everyone see the SSTs okay? All right, so we're gonna move into the SST process. We did do a pilot last year on Beyond SST with a few teachers and some willing coordinators, and it was pretty much determined that it just was not a good fit. But there were some aspects of Beyond SST that they did like. So we've made a few minor changes to the SST process to incorporate some of that. There we go. I'm not going to go over mission and vision again because we already did that, but we'll go ahead and go through what an SST is, when it should be used, where they start, what does the process look like, and the roles. All right. A scholar study team is a meeting group of comprised of educators and specialists who are brought together to consider general education, intervention, and supports that would best benefit the scholar. It is an important part of the MTSS framework. This is a very crucial part of MTSS where we document and gather all of this information in case a scholar does need to move forward with a referral for an IEP or a 504. When should an SST be referred? After the parent and the teacher have tried all the tier 1 and tier 2 interventions, and they have data to validate that these interventions just aren't working and we need to move up a level with our interventions. They've met with their coordinator to strategize, and now it's just time for an SST. If you're not sure how to follow the process, here's my very confusing map. If you follow the arrows, you can get to where you need to go, hopefully. But it does go through the SST referral process, what to listen for that might kick you out of the SST and down to the 504, or parent requests a SPED intervention or a SPED assessment. We're going to jump up here, but there's still other things that we need to gather in the meantime. So there are hyperlinks within this to the different referral forms. Not sure if SPED has updated their form for this year. I might need to update this graph. Where should I start? The first steps in the SST process is to fill out the referral, which can be found on the academic support guide site under the SST tab. There's a triggers and timeline chart for the process with expected due dates on the different steps and how long they should take, just so that we're moving everything forward at a decent pace. We don't want to rush through it. We want to make sure we've got time for those interventions to work, but we don't want to take too long and not get support in place for the scholar if they really need it. The complete guide to the SST process can be found on the academic support site as well. A lot of times parents are a little concerned about SST. They aren't sure what it is. It's not a legally binding process like IEPs and 504s. It is just a support team there specifically to support their scholar. And I made this little guide that can be emailed to them, just walks them through the different steps of the process so they know what to expect and can focus more on supporting the scholar instead of worrying about what comes next. Rule before an SST for the administrator, collaborate with ST tier 1 and tier 2 supports. Supporting the ST with the referral process. Sometimes they don't remember. We throw all of this information at the beginning of the year at them and expect them to remember all of it, and it's just not possible. So making sure that if they have questions on where to find the referral or the process, you know where to guide them to find that information. Making sure that we've got data. Data is really important. We need work samples, we need test scores, we need feedback forms. We need to make sure that the slide deck is prepped and ready to go before the meeting. And that the meeting summary is prepped and ready to go as well. Reviewing all of the data before the SST meeting is a responsibility for everyone in the meeting. It's really hard to go into a meeting and not have any background information on the kiddo and expect to be effective in the collaboration process. Ensure that the SST has been scheduled and all the required members are there. And collaborate with me if you have any questions, because there are a few little tweaks to the SST process this year. One of them being that the ST will schedule all of the meetings. They're the one that's working with the ST. They know the ST schedule, and it's just a better fit for them to schedule that initial meeting instead of having me do it, because my emails often end up in the parent's junk. So that is one little tweak, but there is an invite list within the SST guide. and it's inside the folder, which will be given to them after the referral has been made. During the meeting, notify the ST when the SST summary is complete so they can send out the summary for signatures. One thing that my pilot group did come up with that I thought was a really great plan was during IEP meetings, the admin are already taking notes and they're being very helpful in that way, and they're also engaged in that way. And one of the things that they felt would be beneficial for our STs is for them to take the notes during the meeting in the SST summary. So while the meeting is going on, our STs will still be sharing that slideshow where they are entering all of the information that's discussed throughout the meeting, but the admin of the meeting will be filling out the summary at the same time. So the ST will no longer have to take that information and transfer it to the summary to send out for signatures because that coordinator has already done that for them. The ST will send it out for signature still though, so that the program coordinator will need to let the ST know, hey, the summary is complete and ready for you to send out for signature. They need to ensure that all the documentation for the meeting is in the folder. Make sure that signed SST summary ends up back in the folder. Sometimes it doesn't. And so the coordinator just needs to make sure that it got back in there. If you need any help from me for tracking, I'm available as well. I did create a checklist for the coordinators. Don't know if you'll need it, but I created one just in case you want it. That'll walk you through the process as well. And then check in that weekly progress monitoring is occurring. There's a weekly progress monitoring sheet within the SST folder that the entire team can access. It'll be shared between the LC and the ST so they can collaborate weekly on the interventions in place so that we can have data and work samples to determine if it's working or not. And then, of course, you can always reach out to me if you have any questions. Supervising teacher is going to look a little bit different this year. Pretty much the same process, just a few little tweaks. Like I said, the parent or the scholars parent will seek out the SST, or the teacher might reach out to the parent and say, hey, I think it's time for an SST. They're going to make sure that all of the interventions are in place, the referral has been sent in. They're going to make sure that they have completed their pre-SST form, which will be put into the SST file, and make sure the parent has filled out their pre-SST form because that parent input is really important. Those feedback forms are in the guide for the SST meetings, so they won't have to wait for me to send them to them this year. They'll have access and can do it themselves, which will take a whole step out of there and make things move a little bit more smoothly. They're going to gather all of the relevant documentation, make sure it's in the folder for everyone to review, and make sure that their meeting slides are prepped and ready to go for that meeting. During the meeting, the ST will facilitate the meeting using that slide deck, brainstorm interventions, lead the group in problem-solving efforts, redirect discussion as necessary. It happens to all of us. Offer reasonable support, appropriate alternatives, and make sure that all of it's documented within that slideshow. There's other supports that can be suggested as well if they qualify, like our ELD tutoring or intervention tutoring. They might not be taking advantage of that. We might want to encourage them gently to take advantage of that opportunity, and then schedule the meeting at least 6 weeks from the meeting date. So that will be scheduled in the meeting when everyone's there, they've got their calendars open. It works out a lot better that way. After the meeting, the STs will send that summary that the coordinators filled out for them out for signatures. They'll add the follow-up meeting to the Google Calendar and invite all the appropriate attendees and me for tracking purposes. I'll be on there as optional, and make sure all of the progress monitoring is ending up in that progress monitoring sheet so the team can review it before the next meeting. Counselors and specialists, when applicable, respond to the RSVP meeting invites in a timely manner so we know if that time works for everyone. Review the SST folder before the meeting, and then collaborate with the teacher or myself if you have any questions or concerns you want to talk about before the meeting. During the meeting, you have been selected for your expertise in a specific area, so your participation is very much wanted and valuable. Share perspective from your point of view and collaborate with the team to problem solve. Block off any meeting dates and times if you were scheduled, given something during the SST process, like reaching out for a counseling meeting or to discuss a class with someone. Make sure that you do that as well. And then I'm not sure I understand. Well, I wasn't talking to you, sorry about that. After the meeting, again, follow up with any tasks that were designated to you, and then collaborate with your team as needed. My role during the process, I review the SST referrals, I determine the appropriate team members, send the SST file to the team containing all of the documents that are needed for the meetings, submit feedback forms to the SST file for the team members to review when they come in, track the progression of the meetings, support the coordinators throughout the process, collaborate with special education to review scholar files that did not meet eligibility criteria for the IEP and determine if the SST referral is needed, and I'm always available for consultation. Any questions about the SST process?
I'm just wondering for STs, is there a way to highlight the things that have changed? It was really helpful this year. We got a document with the handbook with like, just here are the things that were changed so we know to pay attention to those. That'd be super helpful.
Yeah, I have guides for all of it ready to go. I'm going to upload them to the guide site hopefully today, if not tomorrow. So they'll have access to all of that before we have the SST training. Anyone else? Okay, well, if you do have any questions, like I said, my GChat is always open. My email, I check all the time. It's open all day long. And you can always put questions on the doc that Casey shared, tag me, and I will answer them as quickly as I can. Thanks, everyone.
Real quick too, I think some people were having issues with accessing the slide deck, so I actually just updated them in there. So if you go back into that FAQ doc, you'll see the slide decks. We'll make sure to share the recording link as well, so share that with anyone on your team maybe that wasn't able to join us this morning. We will be revisiting SSTs. I was trying to find the date. Dawn, do you remember the date off the top of your head? I'm not sure if we scheduled that one just yet.
I think it was the 21st.
Okay, but that is coming up. So Heather, that was a great question, because we'll make sure when we go through that, we will do just that. We'll highlight those changes as well. It's a really great idea. Any other questions while we're still on? Tomorrow we're going to be looking at interventions and support under our MTSS framework. So Melissa is going to be taking that on tomorrow morning at 9, and kind of the similar platform as today. We'll have some chance for questions and answers as well. If there's not any more questions, 8:15, perfect. So on August 15th, we have the SST training for those two. But let us know, like I said, if there's any questions that continue to come up, use that FAQ doc, GChat, Dawn and I, if you have suggestions like what Heather had, please send them our way because you're hearing it from teachers and your staff as well. If there's anything we can do to better support how this information gets out to any of our teams, we're always open to those suggestions and appreciate that feedback too. So thank you all so much. And I think we're done for this morning. So I hope everyone had a great Monday yesterday. Welcome back again. And hopefully your Tuesday will be just as great. So thank you guys. Appreciate you all. Have a great day. Thanks, Dawn.